Leaving? Only if I die. He shredded my divorce papers with a lethal smile. When his death was announced, I thought I was finally free. But at midnight, a man drenched in blood climbed through my window. Julian, the man who should be a corpse, pinned me down, his breath cold against my ear. Heard you wanted to be a widow? Too bad. I've returned from hell to claim you. I had just finished writing the divorce papers when he came over and tore them up. He did it patiently, taking his time. With a flick of his fingers, the scraps scattered and spun through the air like the heavy snow the first time I met him. He dusted off his hands, sat down at ease, and calmly crossed his legs. Leaning back lazily, he lifted those phoenix eyes. The corners were tinged red, brimming with an endless, careless charm. You wish. I felt wrung out. I almost wanted to charge over, grab him by the shoulders, and slap him twice. Why bother? Why are you doing this? He must have read my face. Amused, he laughed so hard he slapped my bed, nearly laughing himself into tears. Still laughing, he walked out the door. Ellie, don't even think about leaving me in this life. Everyone knew my husband, Julian Sue, was famously unhinged. They said he loved cruelty. If someone bumped into him on the street, he could beat them to death on the spot. If someone offended him at court, they'd be stripped of office and exiled the next day. And his residence was rumored to be eerie and grim, bodies hanging like a forest, countless wronged souls dying within. But I'd known him even before all that. He really was sick. That year the snow fell thick and heavy. I was craving sweets and insisted on carrying a lantern to buy pastries a few streets away. No one could stop me. My mother had had enough of my stubbornness. She rubbed her forehead and waved a hand. Let her go, my child. With permission, I dashed into the snow like a colt just set loose. Even the maids couldn't catch up. They called after me. Miss, slow down, slow down. I ran even faster, shouting back, you're just too slow. The next second, I slammed into a broad chest. My nose hurt so badly, tears sprang up at once. Clutching my nose, I looked up. I couldn't tell if it was the glare of the snow or the other person's devastatingly handsome face, but my vision swam. Tears kept spilling down. I was about to go around him and keep going when he lazily reached out. A golden folding fan snapped open. He looked like some charming young rogue stepped out of a painting. His lips curled into an ostentatious smile. You run into me and still want to leave? I'd say you've got a death wish. I froze. I didn't know whether to think, who fans themselves in winter? Or, am I still going to make it in time for fresh-baked abalone snails with bone? And I truly didn't recognize him. I didn't even know what to call him when I apologized, so I forced a humble, friendly smile. Hello, may I ask who you are? My maids and guards finally caught up. I whispered, Quick, who is this? They didn't have time to answer. They all bowed and apologized in a panic. Our miss doesn't know any better. She offended you by accident. Please be magnanimous and don't hold it against her. He snorted. Closing his fan, he lifted my chin and smiled like a fox. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't hold it against you. But, I shoved his fan aside, bold as a newborn calf. But what? He kicked my lantern away. But the young lady of the Ling family doesn't even recognize me. That truly breaks my heart. I hope you remember this day well. Next time we meet, don't forget me again. I stood there in the snow, dumbfounded. How could anyone be that awful? That night, I ate 3 full bowls of rice through angry tears. Only later did I learn he was the young prince, Julian Sue. He was born when the emperor traveled incognito and had a child with a common woman. After years of twists and hardship, the emperor finally found him. He was welcomed back to the imperial palace with great ceremony and granted the title Prince Duan. For a time, he was the talk of the city. Officials and commoners flattered him in public, yet despised his low birth and looked down on him behind his back. Perhaps because of that, Prince Duan Julian Sue grew brutal and did many horrifying things. The rumors quieted, at least a little. After my mother heard what happened, she let out a shaky breath. At least he kicked your lantern, not your head. A blessing in disguise. So when I heard later that he was getting married, I was thrilled. I laughed until I couldn't breathe, slapping my thigh as I asked the friend who came to tell me, who was unlucky enough to marry him. My friend looked like she couldn't bear to see me live, yet couldn't bear to see me die. She turned away and said heavily, Ellie, it's you. Everything is prepared. In a month he'll bring you into the residence. My smile froze. Bring who into the residence? You. Who wants to bring me into the residence? Julian Sue. Julian Sue wants to bring who into the residence? She sighed, like she wasn't facing my wedding but my funeral. Tears even fell. Ellie, take care. I'll miss you. When the Ghost Gate opens at the Ghost Festival, don't forget to come home often. My vision went black. On the night of the wedding, he rudely kicked my door open and caught me lifting my red bridal veil to steal pastries. Me. I silently lowered the veil again. In the icy air, I backed up step by step, cleared my throat, sat properly, and acted as if nothing had happened. Julian Sue was quiet for a long time. He closed the door without a word. After another long pause, he finally strolled over. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could hear the fake smile in his voice. Before this, no one taught Lady Ellie what to do on her wedding night. I felt wronged. But I'm hungry. I tried to explain. I've been here all day, and no one brought me food. I was starving. And if I don't have the strength, how can I serve you properly? I'm thinking of you. He snorted. You've got plenty of excuses. I stayed modest. Not that many, just a normal amount. Silence fell again. Maybe this is what it's like when there's nothing to say. I sighed. I didn't understand why he'd marry someone he'd barely met. Under the veil, I saw his fingers curl tight, his knuckles going pale. He stepped closer without touching me, and his voice turned cold. Why did you sigh, Lady Ellie? Do you think marrying someone like me is humiliating? I scratched my head, thrown by his logic. No. I'm just curious. Why did you marry me? We've only met once, right? He seemed to relax. He lifted my veil. The motion was unexpectedly gentle, but his tone stayed stiff, edged with mockery. You couldn't even recognize me before, so I brought you home. You can look at me day and night. Maybe then you'll remember. Me. I didn't know if he was truly cruel, but he was definitely bored. He leaned closer and closer. At the worst possible time, I found myself thinking he really did have a handsome face. Red lips, white teeth. Even this close, there wasn't a flaw. His skin was flawless too. He was too close. Uncomfortable. I tried to push him away. I couldn't. I fell quiet, then asked sincerely, Are you sure you won't regret it? He smiled, his hand brushing my cheek. No regrets. I nodded. Really? Good. Then I sneezed right in his face, and I watched his beautiful, moon-bright face darken like the bottom of a pot. I looked at him as innocently as I could. I wanted to tell you, I caught a cold recently. His expression flickered. After a long moment, he flung his sleeve and stormed out, kicking the door open as he left. When I woke up in the morning, still half asleep, I rolled over and found the bed much narrower. Something heavy was blocking me at my side, heavy enough that I couldn't shove it away. Squeezed and irritated, I also felt like my blanket had been stolen. In my fog, I kicked the thing off the bed. A dull thud. Then silence. The bed felt spacious again. The blanket was mine again. I was delighted. I wrapped myself up and went right back to sleep. Wait, I snapped my eyes open. The thing I'd kicked off might have been a person. I shot upright and saw Julian Sue sitting on the floor, his face livid. My mind went blank. Well, ha, what a coincidence. You're here too? I forced a laugh, trying to smooth it over. He didn't get up. One forearm rested on the edge of the bed, his head propped lazily on his hand. He looked calm and detached, like nothing in the world could trouble him. Only his smile carried a hint of gritted teeth. Lady Ellie is quite skilled. I tried to pull him up, but Julian Sue was like a child in the marketplace refusing to leave the stall. If he said he wasn't moving, he truly wouldn't move. He'd sulk and fight you on it, so I hurried down. Since the young prince was sitting on the floor, how could I stay in bed and stare at him? My bare feet hit the floor, and the morning chill crept into my skin and curled around my calves. His expression sharpened. He grabbed my ankle. What are you doing? I said earnestly. It's my fault. I wronged you. If you won't come up, then you must be blaming me. I pulled my foot from his grasp. So I'm coming down to apologize. For once, he frowned. He caught my calf, leaned in, and in one smooth motion pressed me back onto the bed. What did you call me? I stared into his eyes, dazed. They felt vaguely familiar, and for a moment my thoughts drifted. He leaned closer, coaxing. What do you call your husband? I switched at once and lavished him with praise, hoping this living demon would calm down and stop holding a grudge. Of course, husband. My good husband. So wise and mighty, so impressive. The way you landed just now was graceful and elegant. You raised my standards of beauty on the spot. From now on, you're my compass. If you say east, I'll never dare go west, husband." He lifted a brow and gave a soft snort, then let me go. Only then did I notice he was properly dressed. What? Only slightly rumpled. He must have slept in his clothes all night without undressing. After he slammed the door and left last night, I ate the pastries on the table. I finished them all, and he still didn't come back. I thought, is there really such a sweet deal? He's annoyed with me right after we marry? Then my days will be even quieter. So I waited a while longer. When he didn't return, I blew out the candle and climbed into bed. I don't have many strengths, but I've never struggled to sleep in a new place. Even at Prince Duan's residence, I fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow and slept until dawn. So he must have come in the middle of the night, seen me hogging the bed, and grudgingly curled up at the edge until I kicked him off. The first time we met, he kicked over my lantern. Now, I'd kicked him out of bed. Karma really did come full circle, down to the smallest detail. After he shoved me like that, my legs were still bare and exposed. He settled back into that calm expression, looked away and pulled the blanket over my legs. Half-dressed. What kind of behavior is that? I stared at him, openly curious. Wasn't he a little too proper? People said Prince Duan Julian Su was a womanizer who slept among flowers and lingered in brothels. Yet with me, he even policed a bare leg. Anyone who didn't know better would think he was my older brother. He noticed my gaze. He leaned in and lightly tapped his nose to mine, like greeting a stray cat. What are you staring at me for? Think I'm good-looking? I didn't blink. I kept flattering him. Of course, husband, you're more handsome than Panan. Your brows and eyes are like a painting. Even 10 miles of spring breeze can't compare to the smile at your lips. Julian Su suddenly covered my mouth, annoyed. All slick talk, not a shred of sincerity. Don't bother. My head ached. How could someone have such a rotten personality? I couldn't scold him. I couldn't praise him. What did he want from me? Still, were his ears always this red? The table was quickly set with breakfast. Besides the usual dishes, there were abalone snails with bone and a bowl of pitch-black soup of unknown origin. I believed in asking when I didn't know. I owned my ignorance honestly. Husband, what is this? He sat down with a smile. Gut-rot powder. I nodded and, to be polite, took a sip. Oh, it was herbal medicine for colds. Thank you, husband. You're thoughtful. I offered the obligatory thanks. He didn't respond, and the silence returned. Julian Su and I simply didn't match. Like right now, we sat facing each other with nothing to say. I still didn't know why he'd married me. Maybe he thought I'd offended him, and he'd brought me here just to torment me on purpose. Like this medicine. He had to lie and call it poison. What a petty man. He rested his chin on his hand and didn't touch his chopsticks. He just watched me. Uncomfortable under his gaze, I pretended not to notice and focused on eating. After a while, he suddenly said, "Are you crazy? Why did you drink it? Aren't you afraid you'll die?" Huh? Didn't you put it there for me to drink? And now you're blaming me for drinking it? What a strange man. I lowered my eyes and said politely, "As long as you tell me to drink it, even if it were poison, I'd drink it gladly." That's a lie. If that day ever came, I'd punch you in the face first. Julian Su frowned again. All talk. I was truly impressed. Julian Su had a very punchable face and a mountain of punchable rumors. But what he actually did wasn't that terrible. Aside from his sharp tongue and his habit of picking at me, he didn't really make life hard for me. So after I came to Prince Duan's residence, my days were fairly quiet, much like my old days at home. I ate, slept, ate. I copied sutras, embroidered red patterns, and slipped out to buy snacks. My maid, Luna, was fiercely loyal to Prince Duan. When I copied scriptures, she looked approving. "Good, madam," chanting for blessings. "If the prince knows you care so much about his safety, he'll be very happy." When I snuck out to have fun, she stayed glued to my side and lectured me. "Madam, a wife should follow her husband. You shouldn't go out through the front gate or even step beyond the inner doors. If the prince returns and sees you gone, what will that look like?" I offered her a candied hawthorn skewer. "Want one?" She kept her eyes lowered, face solemn. "I wouldn't dare." I held it out again, and then we squatted by the river together and ate candied hawthorn. As I ate, I instructed her, "Luna, you're my maid. You should listen to me. Stop saying Prince Duan all day, got it? She stopped chewing. Righteous again. Prince Duan has shown me kindness as great as a mountain. I patted her shoulder. If you agree, keep eating. We'll eat together from now on. If you don't agree, I'll jump into the river and see how you explain it to your Prince Duan. I will obey Madam in everything, loyal without question, regardless of life or death, she said at once, smoothly, without a pause. I smiled and ruffled her fluffy hair. Good. That's how it should be. I knew she was only saying it, but I only needed surface-level respect. At least then I wouldn't have to listen to her nagging every day. After we tossed the last 2 bear sticks into an ash pit, I headed back toward the street. Luna asked, confused, "It's getting late. Are you not going back, madam?" "I am," I said, taking another candied hawthorn. "But this shop is really good. I'll buy one for the prince, too." "I am of noble body. You think I would eat something like this? Ridiculous." Julian Su flicked his sleeve and walked off. His guard took my candied hawthorn, probably to throw it away. I scratched my head, a little regretful. That shop really was delicious. If someone couldn't enjoy common street snacks because they were used to fine delicacies and their status was too lofty, that would be a shame. The scriptures say to seek the Buddha's path above and to guide all beings below. People should be the same, able to eat delicacies above, able to chew coarse roots below. Only then is it balanced and you don't miss the flavors on the other side. Luna looked pleased. Looks like the prince is very happy. What? You call that happy? Poor thing. I clicked my tongue. Luna had grown up in Prince Duan's residence. It seemed staying in a place like this too long made people abnormal. But it didn't matter anymore. She was with me now. Sooner or later, she'd become normal again. Wasting food was wrong. I jogged after the guard to tell him not to throw away my candied hawthorn, mostly because after walking around I was hungry again. Better for Luna and me to split it than toss it away. I pushed open the door, as sincere as ever. Prince?" The prince jerked his head up. Sugar crumbs clung to the corner of his mouth. In his hand was the candied hawthorn skewer, bitten several times. I shut the door with a loud smack. "See? I told you. My taste isn't wrong. No one can resist good snacks." I went back to my room, very proud of myself. I was drinking tea when Luna suddenly wiped at the corner of her eyes. As I blew aside the tea leaves floating on top, I asked with concern, "What is it? Did someone bully you?" Luna held back tears. "Madam, please believe the prince." "What?" With fierce conviction, she said, "I believe the prince must have his reasons. Before you learn the truth, please give him your greatest trust." What was she talking about? After a lot of questioning, I finally understood. Julian Su had brought a young girl home. In my first month here, the young prince hadn't touched me much. Other than picking fights, he'd barely paid attention to me. And now he'd brought in another woman. I let out a relieved sigh. "Luna, why are you crying over something this small? Don't make such a fuss. If someone didn't know better, they'd think my favorite pastry shop went out of business." Luna fumed. "It must be that little vixen seducing the prince." "Madam, you should at least react." Now it was my turn to be genuinely shocked. "Wait, why would I react?" She choked. "Huh?" She clearly didn't understand. I waved her over to sit beside me and patiently broke it down for her. The young prince doesn't feel anything for me. He married me because he had nothing better to do. Now he's found a new target to torment. I should be grateful, understand? She shook her head. "I don't understand." I sighed, exasperated. She was dead serious, like a sheltered girl who just read a romance and still believed in perfect couples. Full of faith and longing, she declared, "The prince loves you deeply. How could he not have feelings for you? I'm going to drive that little vixen out." I didn't know what had happened to put that idea in her head. For now, I could only grab her wrist. "If you like someone, would you kick over her lantern?" "Huh?" "If you like someone, would you ignore her wishes and marry her with a pile of gifts without even getting close to her first?" "Madam, if you like someone, would you storm out on your wedding night?" I've known for a long time the young prince doesn't like me. That's fine. I looked at her and let go of her wrist. As long as he doesn't come looking for trouble, I'm grateful. I'd like nothing more than to burn extra incense at the temple. Luna looked like her fantasies had shattered. She murmured, "There must be some misunderstanding." I poured another cup of tea and blew on it slowly. It's hard to admit someone doesn't like you, but it's not that hard. In a small voice, Luna asked, "But madam, do you really feel nothing for the prince at all? If not, why did you marry him?" To say I felt nothing would be a lie. At first sight, it had been like a flash of light. He had a pair of peach blossom eyes, dazzling and bright, so beautiful you couldn't look away. But he came after me again and again. That first wonder wore down into scattered fragments, and that was the end of it. Marrying into the imperial family is a chance most families wouldn't refuse, and I couldn't decide a marriage anyway. By noon, sunlight warmed everything, breaking and sifting through the treetops. The heat steamed the greenery, spreading a drowsy scent through the air. Spring sleepiness, autumn fatigue, summer naps. I yawned and patted my dejected little maid. "Sleepy, take a nap. Sleep solves 1,000 worries." Julian Sue still hadn't come by, but that girl showed up that night. She looked at me timidly, eyes damp. Her waist was so slender you could wrap a hand around it, like a little white flower. The little white flower dipped into a small bow and greeted me. "Madam," I cracked sunflower seeds. "I'm only 16. I'm about your age. Calling me madam makes me sound old. If you don't mind, call me sister." Her lips curved, dimples appeared in her cheeks. With that smile, spring seemed to bloom at the corners of her eyes and mouth. "Thank you, sister." Luna worked diligently, shelling seeds for me. The kernels piled up like a small hill. I freed my hands and enjoyed the ease. I still don't know what this little what this sister is called. My surname is Yun. My given name is Grace. Speaking without understanding, the clouds leave me with no worries. What a fine name. She lowered her eyes. "I'm foolish. I'm truly slow, like a piece of wood." "You're joking. Wood has its own good fortune. Besides, you're so beautiful. Even if you were wood, you'd be the best-looking kind." She smiled. I smiled. We smiled at each other. The atmosphere was painfully awkward. Luna kept shelling seeds in silence. The door creaked and was shoved open. Who was it? Who was it? Who was it that broke this awkward mood and saved me? I looked over with great hope. Oh, it was Julian Sue. Never mind then. In a flash, the girl in front of me moved. She lunged forward, hugged my leg, and burst into tears. Her voice was hoarse as she wailed. "I know you and the prince are deeply in love, unbreakable as steel. I'm just a pitiful person the prince took pity on. I don't have any improper thoughts about him. Please, madam, spare me." "Me?" Luna. A flawless performance. What a character. I tried to pull my foot free. I couldn't, so I gave up. I let her cling to me and cry, repeating, "Please, madam, spare me," over and over. Julian Sue stared at me without blinking. He looked to be in an excellent mood. His face was bright with delight. He pulled back the leg he'd been about to step inside with, leaned against the door instead, folded his arms, and watched like it was a show. I kept it polite. "Good evening, Prince. Have you eaten? Want some sunflower seeds?" He didn't bother being polite. With a smile, he walked over, sat beside me, and started eating the kernels Luna had shelled for me. Nul. In that small room, he ate seeds. I drank tea that had already gone cold. When Luna saw Julian Sue come in, she worked even harder, peeling and shelling with extra care. Gracian saw no one was paying attention to her, so she cried more softly. The sobbing was well controlled. It didn't twist her expression, and it didn't look forced. Now she simply let the tears slide down in silence. Like a pear blossom in spring rain, so pitiful it made you want to protect her. From time to time she stole a glance at Julian Sue, then withdrew it with a wronged look, as if she were being terribly threatened. Julian Sue smiled. "I had no idea Ellie could threaten people from behind. I'm impressed." When Grace Yun heard that, she immediately edged toward him, like she'd found a savior. "Threatening people behind their backs is a petty trick? I wouldn't do it." I smiled too, lifted the lukewarm teapot, and slowly poured it all over Grace Yun. If I were going to do it, I wouldn't hide it. I'd do it right in front of everyone. Like this. Grace Yun froze, dumbfounded. Julian Sue finally couldn't hold it in. He laughed out loud. "Madam, what you did yesterday was so satisfying. I thought with your personality, you wouldn't do anything at all." Luna happily combed my hair. I pondered, trying to correct her mistaken belief that I had a gentle temper. Honestly, I think the prince and her are pretty well matched. But she insisted on stepping on my face. Some people can't be saved, no matter how kindly you speak. She pinned a flower in my hair.
Good thing the prince also sided with you. See? You misunderstood him.
I tried again to correct her mistaken belief that the prince had feelings for me. No matter what, I'm the legal wife. Miss Grace has no status for now. If the prince has even a shred of conscience, he'll at least protect my dignity. But it did shock me. I'd assumed Julian Sue had no conscience at all. Yesterday, he watched me humiliate her like that and said nothing. He even looked pleased. He had the guards take Grace to change clothes. Not only did he not blame me, he also, very rarely, calmly chatted with me for a while. He only left when I got so sleepy I couldn't even hear what he was saying. Still, my trust in Julian Sue was low. When my hairpin was in place, I stood and headed out. All right, let's go. Luna followed behind. She was used to me leaving on a whim. She packed a few things and hurried after me. What are you eating today? I'll go buy it. No. It seemed Luna had quite a few misconceptions about me. I often slipped out to buy snacks, not because I was obsessed with food. There just wasn't anything more interesting nearby that suited me. I stepped over the broken flower-patterned stones by the stairs. Luna held a paper parasol over me. Today we're going to burn incense. She looked puzzled. Why do you suddenly want to go to a temple? I only wanted to wander around, but I couldn't say that. So I said, I'm praying for the prince, of course. I hope he stays safe and everything goes smoothly. And I hope he and Miss Grace get their happy ending soon and spare my life. You really can't judge by appearances. Who would have thought that Luna, my soft, delicate little maid, actually kept a flexible whip wrapped around her waist, and she could fight like a demon? If she hadn't started brawling with those masked bandits holding knives, I never would have known. In the old stories, the Buddha's great disciple Marcus was beaten to death by heretics. And here I was, having just burned incense and worshipped, only to be robbed the moment I walked out. Truly, the Buddha is merciful. Truly, the Buddha is merciful. Luna fought while shouting through gaps in the struggle. Madam, run! Agreed. That was my plan too. But my legs were weak. I couldn't run. I forced myself to move, dodged the chaos, and edged toward the mouth of the alley. A blade suddenly flashed before my eyes, chopping straight at my face. My body went rigid. In my head, my life started playing back like a lantern show. Another blade shot out from behind me and blocked the strike, stopping the attack and cutting off my lantern show. Grateful, I turned. The newcomer wore a black mask. Only his eyes were visible, sharp brows, starry gaze, and a cold, clear look. I was overjoyed. I was about to shout for a hero to save me, when he swiftly twisted my wrist behind my back. His movement was clean and efficient. He snapped. Are you crazy? If you kill her, what are we going to use for ransom? Great. He was the bandit leader. Because Luna was worried about me, she tried to come save me. That distraction gave them an opening, and in a blink she was taken hostage too. The man holding my wrist signaled his companions to bring rope and tie us up. He looked down at me with contempt. So this is the 9th prince's consort? Take her. I cleared my throat. Before they could stuff a rag into my mouth, I called out loudly, If you want to kidnap the 9th prince's consort, what does that have to do with me, Ellie Ling, the daughter of the prefect of the capital? Luna whispered, Madam, Prince Duan is ranked 9th. He is the 9th prince. Me. Oh, I see. My mistake. They blindfolded me and gagged me, then threw me into a carriage. We jolted and turned endlessly. I had no idea how long we traveled before they finally dumped me onto the ground. Along the way, the voices gradually faded. My heart sank lower and lower. They were probably heading deep into the mountains. Even if someone came to save me, where would they even look? My eyes and mouth were bound. The ride was rough, my face twisted with discomfort. A sudden coolness brushed my face. Hands pulled off the blindfold and the rag. I gulped air. The tightness in my chest eased at last. It was that guy with the especially pretty eyes. I looked around. We seemed to be in a ruined, abandoned temple. A bandit nearby said, So this is the 9th prince's consort, the one that the living Yama, Julian Sue, dotes on like she's his heart? The young man replied coldly, Then it must be. His voice was like a clear mountain stream, too clean for a broken temple. Me? What on earth is this? Amitabha. Julian Sue is fierce as a tiger, but rumors are even fiercer than Julian Sue. I had no idea how my daily life of getting picked on had turned into that kind of story. And now I'd been kidnapped because of it. Julian Sue, You've really done me dirty. I wanted to tell them. You've got the wrong idea. Prince Duan doesn't care about me at all. Whatever you want, using me to threaten him won't work, because Julian Su doesn't like me." That scream echoed in my heart, but I couldn't say it. As a hostage, as long as I had value, I could stay alive. If they learned the truth, that Julian Su and I were only married in name, who knew if they'd kill me on the spot? From the way that young man spoke and carried himself, he seemed like someone you could reason with. Once I caught my breath, I said, "Sir, let's talk calmly. You want money, not blood. Whatever you want, I'll do my best to provide it. I won't report you to the authorities. Please, let me go." He said nothing and turned to leave. Helpless, I had to invoke Julian Su. "You know my husband's temperament. If you let me go now, I can pretend nothing happened. But if the ninth prince finds out, you might all lose your heads." He stopped. He seemed to smile, but his voice didn't change. Hard to say whose heads will be the ones falling. My heart turned cold. Someone nearby muttered, "So many words," and moved to gag me again. The young man glanced at me and waved a hand to stop him. Then he sat beside me. "Go meet the other team. I'll guard this place." "Sir, hello, I'm hungry." After my stomach had growled countless times, I finally spoke with complete sincerity. "But I'm easy to feed. A few pieces of fruit will do." When he didn't respond, I pleaded again. "Brother, hero, benefactor, please." He watched me in silence. His eyes were heavy, giving nothing away. After a long moment, he covered my eyes and mouth again and went out. "Me, hero, don't go. If some passing beggar comes, or another gang of bandits, or a wild wolf, what then? It's already night. I'm in danger." No one was beside me now. In theory, it was the perfect time to escape, but I knew my own abilities. If I ran, I'd only end up in worse danger. So I waited, anxious and tense. Luckily, he came back soon. He removed the bindings from my face again and tossed a few ugly, bruised fruits into my arms. I fell silent. Wonderful. Wonderful because I didn't know Mao magic. I couldn't eat fruit with my hands tied. "Sir, hello. Could you untie the rope on my hands? Don't worry, I won't run. I'm too hungry to have any strength left." I knew it was an unreasonable request. I didn't expect much. But after a brief silence, he did untie it. I rubbed my hands. They were bluish and numb from being bound so long. Then I pushed my luck. "My feet. There's rope on my feet too. You're such a good person. Could you untie those as well? Don't worry, I can't outrun you." He untied them too. I didn't try anything. I behaved obediently to show a bit of gratitude. I ate quietly. Fruit only makes you hungrier the more you eat, but it was better than nothing. When I was almost done, I finally remembered to share. I split the last small crab apple and tried to be friendly. "Brother, half for you." He shook his head. He sat there, intent as if thinking. Very quiet. He wore plain black clothes, but the fabric was clearly good. Nothing an ordinary man could afford. It looked more like something tailored for officials. The sword at his waist also looked finely made, expensive. I understood a little more, and sighed again. I really was unlucky. The little prince had made enemies, and I was the one dragged into this ruined temple to suffer. No one else was here but the two of us. I tried to pry out some information. I leaned closer and asked bluntly, "Am I going to die?" He glanced at me, then looked into the night sky. He spoke sparingly. "People always die." "Right, a perfectly correct piece of nonsense." He tilted his head slightly, considering, "But at least not right now." I was about to ask more when there was a sudden commotion outside. His companions must have returned. He looked at me. I understood at once and picked up the rope from the ground, loosely binding my own legs. "I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. No need for you to bother." If someone else tied me up, they'd tighten it until my hands and feet turned purple. Better to tie myself. He could tell what I was thinking, but he didn't stop me. As for my wrists, I still needed him. He tucked the knot into my palm. I turned my hand, grabbed it, and pulled. The rope that looked tightly bound loosened at once. He nodded. "Yes, like that. If something happens, it'll be easier to escape." So I cheerfully watched him tie me up with these secure-looking ropes that would fall apart with one pull. I couldn't help asking, "Who are you really?" "It doesn't matter, but you'll probably find out soon." Julian Su arrived quickly. Faster than I imagined. On the third night, I was playing cards with the bandits when an arrow grazed past my cheek and thudded into the wall. Then outside someone roared, "Who shot that arrow? Are you insane?" My wife is still inside. What a dramatic entrance. The bandits sprang up all at once. With a crash, they broke through a window and fled. I stood there, utterly confused. Wasn't the normal play to hold a knife to my throat? Why did they run the moment the target for ransom showed up? Julian Sue was the first to charge in. Seeing this, he immediately turned and ordered, "Go after them." Only then did he come to me. He gripped my shoulders and studied my face closely until I felt uncomfortable all over. After a long time, he pulled me into his arms. I didn't have the heart to tell him I hadn't bathed in 3 days. He was strong, and he held me tight. I could barely breathe. I patted his back, signaling him to loosen up. He held on a while longer before letting go. He stared at the cut on my face, then raised a hand to wipe away the blood. His touch was gentle. His voice was gentle too, but it somehow felt suffocating.
Who did this?
"I'll kill him," I answered honestly. This cut, you did." Silence. Silence was tonight's river of the dead. Julian Sue probably felt he'd lost face. He insisted on executing the guard who had fired the arrow. I stopped him, my head aching. Forget it, forget it." Like a cat being soothed after its fur stood on end, he finally calmed down. Then he scooped me up. My body lifted into the air. For a moment I was dazed. I almost believed he might truly love me. The next second he said, "A wife runs off only a month after the wedding. If word gets out, where does that leave my dignity?" I didn't run off. I was kidnapped. Fine. Forget I said anything. He carried me down the mountain. I tried to be considerate. "Prince, I have legs, I can walk." He ignored me, so I shut up and stayed in his arms. Only then did I notice his shoulders were broad, his arms strong, and his hold steady. All my life, I hadn't often been carried like this. It felt strangely novel. I wrapped an arm around his neck. He saw the bruises on my wrists and looked away. He spoke slowly, word by word. "When we find those mountain bandits, I'm going to drag them out one by one and kill them." I patted his arm. "Prince, killing brings heavy karma." His face darkened. He probably felt his authority was being challenged. I hurried to add, "I know you're in a high position, and many things are beyond your control. I only hope that when the situation is something you can control, you won't stain your hands with too much blood." His grip tightened. He raised a brow, but his expression stiffened. Like on our wedding night, when he stood before me, knuckles pale.
What, Ellie? Are you afraid of me? Do you think I'm dirty?
I sighed. How is his mind even built? How does every sentence I say turn into something I never meant? It was baffling. That's not it. I looked up into his amber eyes and forced my expression into utter sincerity. "I just think you're upright and clear as wind and moon. You shouldn't be tainted by things like this." The tension in his face eased a little. Good. There was hope. I pressed on, sealing off every angle. "Whatever you say, whatever you do, I trust you completely. I only don't want you to do this because I hope your fortune and virtue stay intact, and you won't be burdened with the karma of slaughter." His expression finally softened, and with him holding me so close, I had the illusion we were intimate. I reached up and smoothed the crease between his brows. "See? Nothing happened in the end. Let's go home." The mountain path was uneven. It was impressive he kept walking so steadily. I said with concern, "Prince, you've worked so hard." The moment I said it, he stumbled. Something slipped from inside his collar and smacked me in the face with a sharp slap. Me, who had just been slapped by a random object. I looked closer. It was a jade pendant. More precisely, half a jade pendant. His tone turned strange. "Ellie, you're staring at it? Does it look familiar?" "No, it's because it hit me." But since he asked, I examined it seriously. I'd never seen fine things, so I couldn't tell what was special. I could only flatter him. "It's clear and luminous, warm yet cool, flawless in texture. It's obviously fine jade." For some reason, his face instantly turned black. I felt wronged. So praising it wasn't okay either? Did I miss the point? Being human is hard. I was never good with words, and now I was suffering over how to flatter him precisely. But he couldn't be angry just because I was uncultured. How was that my fault? My father is only the prefect of the capital, and he's an honest official. I've never cared much for gold and jade. My eyes really can't tell. Please don't take it to heart. He stopped. The surroundings were noisy, yet he stayed silent, and the world around him seemed strangely hollow. He stared at my face without blinking. His expression was subtle. It was a gift from someone I once knew. Oh, I see. No wonder it was so precious. He wore it at his neck, close to his heart. It must have been from someone important. No wonder his face had darkened. Not only did I fail to recognize something meaningful, I'd also handled it like a toy. He was probably afraid I'd damage it. I quickly and carefully tucked it back for him. I even patted his chest lightly to make sure it sat right, smiling in an ingratiating way. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was, as he always was, a faint smile, unreadable, fox-like. My wife, you really are a little stray cat.
Huh?
Am I? I touched my face. I hadn't washed much, so I was dusty and grimy, but I didn't care much about looks. Seeing he'd let it go, I was pretty happy. Then don't forget to prepare a few fish for me later, husband. Madam? Luna's voice came from far away. She ran up carrying a lantern. The lantern swayed with her steps, like scattered light rippling on water, floating in the dim shadows. I pushed off Julian Sue's chest, jumped down, and ran to her too. Lulu? In the middle of that, I turned and looked back at him. Maybe it was because he was too beautiful, or because the moon was too gentle. That glance stretched long. A jumble of emotions rose in my chest. White silver grass by the roadside glittered. The path was splashed with moonlight. Moon shadow traced a pale halo around his outline, hiding the usual striking beauty of his face. He looked quiet and plain, his sharpness softened. His amber eyes were dimly lit, holding a faint glow. He stared at me without blinking. The smile he always wore, distant and hard to read, had vanished. In its place was a hint of tenderness. He answered my earlier words, his voice softer and softer. Fine. It wasn't like I'd thought. I used to think the prince was a very cruel man. Now I realized it might be worse. If he were truly as violent as the rumors said, I would probably rack my brains trying to find a way to run. That would be troublesome, and I didn't want it. If he were as my first impression had been, no saint but not a true villain either, then maybe I could live out my life without crossing him, and even be happier thanks to a bit of kindness. But now I discovered that Julian Sue was far gentler than I'd thought. And that was very, very bad. That night, when we returned, I expected to see Grace Yun, but she wasn't there. Julian Sue had someone arrange a bath for me. When I washed, changed, and returned, I found him waiting in my quarters. He stood with his hands behind his back. Moonlight outlined his waist, clean and elegant. His posture was tall and straight. Whether it was his features or his bearing, he was graceful as jade. He heard me and turned. He didn't speak. For once, he put away his smile. His expression held a steady, focused calm. He walked up to me slowly and rested his chin on my shoulder. Unromantic as I was, I shivered. "Prince, it's cold outside. Can we talk inside?" He said nothing. One arm went around my shoulders, the other under my legs. He bent and lifted me into his arms, then strode into the room. Luna blinked at me, shut the door, and ran off. So the room was left with just the two of us. Silence fell. I yawned. It was late and I was sleepy. I walked to the bed, about to find an excuse to send him away, when he hugged me from behind. His arms circled my waist. His voice was very soft. "Ellie, when you disappeared, I was terrified I'd never see you again." It sounded sincere, like he truly had been worried about me. Suddenly, I felt a rare, inexplicable anger. "The prince is really good-tempered. Are you this gentle even to someone you don't like?" He froze. I seized the chance to push his hands away. Even I didn't know where my irritability came from. "Are you like this with Miss Grace too?" He opened his mouth as if to speak. I lay down on the bed, rude and improper, and curled up with my back to him. In a muffled voice I said, "I'm tired. You should rest early too." Julian Sue didn't scold me, and for once he didn't speak in that mocking, indirect way. But he didn't leave either. He sat by the bed, quietly staying beside me. After a long time he reached out. His palm rested lightly on my back. It wasn't clear whether he meant to draw close or to comfort me. Only when he spoke plainly did I realize how good his voice was. He used that pleasant voice, almost like a sigh, and said, "Ellie, you won't even call me husband once." His tone was like a stray cat under the eaves, its fur soaked by rain. Too proud to lower its head, yet so wronged it could only let out a low, stifled whine. It made your heart crumple, like it had been soaked in rough salt water. You couldn't name the feeling. Only that sorrow had taken form, scratching painfully inside your chest. And I didn't want it. I was too selfish. Too selfish. If you like someone, how can you bear that the person he looks at in the future won't be you? No one knew how long passed before he spoke again. Ellie, do you remember the first time we met? He still hadn't left. I was almost asleep, half asleep. I forced out an answer. Yes, I remember. When we first met, you were brave and extraordinary. You kicked my lantern away with one foot. Impressive, truly impressive. He didn't speak again. The hand on my back withdrew gently, like a long, long sigh, soft and softer. That night I had a dream for the first time in ages. I dreamed of a past buried for years, almost impossible to recall. I dreamed of when I was very young and I met a little beggar,